Today's video is presented by Notes and Clips. Head to notesandclips.com and use the code BADOWER25 to get the largest current site-wide discount.
I am a huge fan of superhero films. In fact, I make my living drawing spandex-clad people, and superheroes are a big part of what I want to do with my life. But I'm going to drop a bombshell here. After watching Iron Man 2, I think Martin Scorsese was right.
What did you just say?
For those who missed this, Mr. Scorsese, the legendary director of Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, and a whole host of cinema-defining films, said that the Marvel movies aren't cinema, that they're more theme park rides.
This is madness.
And I believe Iron Man 2 is the first shot across the bow of not just Marvel Studios' weakness, but almost every single recent superhero film's weakness. This is their kryptonite. But you might be surprised to know that I think Iron Man 2 could have been a lot closer to being a great film than most people think.
Iron Man sucks.
Something that even Mr. Scorsese might have considered cinema. What did it fall short? And why? Let's talk about closing the gap between cinema and theme parks. I'll be manning the Ferris wheel today, so let me introduce myself.
Who am I?
My name is Jason Badower, and I'm currently working on Joker Harley Criminal Sanity Volume 2. Let me show you the rest of my work and how much I love superheroes. Now, I don't want to be pedantic. Mr. Scorsese says they're not cinema, but we know that they are technically films, so technically they are cinema.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
But I feel what he really means is they are not his vision of cinema. Mr. Scorsese says that cinema was about characters, the complexity of people and their contradictory and sometimes paradoxical natures, the way they can hurt one another and love one another and suddenly come face to face with themselves. And if Mr. Scorsese has a spectrum, it's cinema on one side, and I guess theme parks on the other. And I don't think there's any real argument that the majority of the Marvel films are absolutely closer to the theme park end of the spectrum than they are to Mr. Scorsese's definition of cinema. I believe that any genre can be cinema, even superheroes. Let's take a genre that people think is trash. Romance films. Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson, or Jennifer Lopez and, well, anyone, including Matthew McConaughey, swanning about in stupid situations.
I have nothing to prove to you.
But romances can also be moving as Call Me By Your Name, or witty as Crazy Stupid Love, or as heart-wrenching as A Star Is Born. And romance can also be science fiction and cinema. The Shape of Water, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or Her are all great romances, great science fiction films, and I'm sure even Mr. Scorsese and the Academy would classify all three as cinema. And while The Shape of Water was the first science fiction film to win an Academy Award for Best Picture, I believe there are plenty of science fiction films that are on Mr. Scorsese's definition of cinema. Gattaca, Blade Runner, Arrival, Children of Men, and superhero films, yeah, they can absolutely be cinema too. If we're talking about non-Marvel, I think The Incredibles, The Batman, which I did some art for, let me know in the comments below what you think, The Dark Knight, and Into the Spider-Verse are all arguably Scorsese cinematic. But what I've been trying to figure out is why. What makes a film more theme park and what makes it more film with a capital F? Often you go to a theme park to have fun. Is it about fun then? I don't think Mr. Scorsese makes films that are particularly fun, but they are immensely enjoyable.
Because that's what heroes do.
It's enjoyable, oftentimes even more so than the best superhero films are for me. But if anyone thinks the last 30 minutes of The Departed is fun, I'm going to turn down your party invitation right now. But I don't think it's just about fun. There's another factor. And I was asking myself, why isn't Iron Man 2 great? Why wouldn't even its most fervent admirer consider it high cinema? Let me walk you through my thought process so you can see how I think I figured it out. Some say studio meddling will ruin a good film. This is usually a big factor, but there are plenty of times where the studio or even two studios are elbow deep in production and things work out pretty well.
It's not possible.
Believe me, I worked on the ad campaigns for Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home, and Sony and Marvel were signing off on everything at every level that I did. And while I don't think Mr. Scorsese would call Spider-Man Homecoming cinema, it had twice the studio interference of Iron Man 2. And I personally think it is a far better film. In fact, it's one of my favorite MCU movies. What do you think, Iron Man 2 or Spider-Man Homecoming? Let me know in the comments below. Too many characters. All right, Mr. Scorsese's obsessed with character, but maybe there's too many characters in Iron Man 2. Who've we got? Rhodey, Nick Fury, Black Widow, Coulson, Whiplash, Justin Hammer, Pepper, Happy, and a little supporting character known as Iron Man.
How many did we win?
That's 9 all up. Let's go back to the Avengers. Thor, Cap, Iron Man, Fury, Widow, Coulson, Loki, Banner, Maria Hill. That is 9 characters and 5 of them are on the team. Wait, I'm forgetting someone. Hawkeye, right, so that's 9.5 characters and 5.5 of them are on the team. Is there anyone out there that thinks Iron Man 2 is better than the Avengers? Let me know in the comments below and fly your red and gold colors. Power to you, by the way. But let's go back to movies that Mr. Scorsese would consider cinema. The Royal Tenenbaums, one of my favorite movies of all time, has 8 people just on the poster, let alone the rest of the supporting cast. The Big Lebowski, The Lord of the Rings, Pulp Fiction, all of these movies that are undeniably cinematic have a huge cast of characters. So for Iron Man 2, I don't know, 9 is a lot, but I don't think the number of characters makes something not cinema. Some people think too many subplots ruined Iron Man 2, and let's be fair, Iron Man 2 has a lot of subplots. I want to thank Sean Chandler's video here for the breakdown. There's a link below, but I want to gently diverge from Sean here. While Demon in a Bottle is an absolutely legendary story arc in Iron Man comic, I don't actually think the alcohol is a separate plot in this movie. I feel it's a reaction to Tony's nihilistic depression from palladium poisoning. But still, that's 7 subplots. But the film dovetails a lot of them together. They solve the daddy issues and the blood poisoning together, so maybe that's 6 subplots. Then Hammer gets subsumed into the Whiplash story, so maybe that's 5. So the government wants the Iron Man armor, Whiplash's revenge plot, Pepper and the romance plot, blood poisoning from the arc reactor, and then Nick Fury, Coulson, Black Widow, and the Avengers recruitment. And I don't feel 5 is a ton of storylines, given that Pepper's story is also the romantic subplot. Is the Avengers recruitment jammed in? Absolutely. But the chess-like complexity of the Royal Tenenbaums, where Gene Hackman has to deal with each member of his family, makes Iron Man 2 look like a game of checkers. Hell, maybe even Monopoly, which is probably the worst game ever made. Hashtag go play Catan. There's no denying that there is a ton of subplots in Iron Man 2, but I still don't think subplots are the problem. But my spider sense is starting to tingle when I begin to look at the bad guys. I absolutely love Sam Rockwell and everything he does, and I even love him here. And Mickey Rourke, Angel Heart, the wrestler, I love the eccentricities he brought to the character of Whiplash. But despite both of these actors' incredible efforts, I don't think they're very good supervillains. But why? What makes a good supervillain? I spoke a little about it in my Loki video. I'll throw a link down below. Again, if you go back to Sean Chandler's video, and even the legendary Nando, many people believe that you gotta ditch Whiplash and just go with Justin Hammer. I respect both these guys, but I don't actually agree. And I'll walk you through some of my math. I would argue that one of the core tenets of the superhero genre is that the supervillain needs to create some sort of physical conflict or spectacle with the hero that is equal to or greater than the hero's power level. What do I mean? Usually it's a physical face-off, a fight, like in the end of Wonder Woman, but can also be a spectacle of lots of little fights and not so little fights, like the Avengers. I don't even think a great supervillain has to have crazy powers. Take a look at Thanos. Many people consider him one of the greatest supervillains of all time, but vanilla, no stone Thanos is just strong and tough. Boring, basic powers, but he's the supervillain of the highest grossing superhero film of all time. Let's circle this back to Iron Man. Great antagonist. Now that's the fancy term for what Iron Man 2's hottest screenwriter in the world, Justin Theroux and Mr. Scorsese, would use to call what we would call the bad guy.
Are we the baddies?
The antagonist is the person who is going up against your protagonist, your hero. Their job is to challenge your protagonist in every way possible. In most films, it's psychological. In good action films, it's also physical, through direct confrontation. And in superhero films, it's physical on a superheroic level. And here's the thing. A good antagonist is not necessarily a bad guy. Wrap your head around that for a second. There are great antagonists in cinema who aren't necessarily bad guys. Apollo Creed is one of the best antagonists of all time. He's a good guy. He gives a shot to a no-name boxer, puts Rocky's name in lights, and shows Rocky respect at all times. But he represents an immovable object, a very public, inevitable, crushing failure for Rocky in a lifetime of constant failures. God, if you haven't seen Rocky, please go watch it. Hit the like button if you love Rocky. That said, there are great antagonists who are in roles or positions of responsibility who are seriously evil people. Detective Alonso Harris from Training Day is an absolutely evil motherfucking guy. He's a fantastic antagonist for Ethan Hawke's fresh out of the academy rookie Jake. Denzel Washington confronts all of Ethan Hawke's ideals and principles. He then wears Jake down, smearing black and white into a mess of grey until he keeps heading more and more black until things really aren't so grey anymore. Anyway, the antagonist is just supposed to oppose the protagonist, aka our good guy, in a fundamental way that drives the good guy to rise, or if it's a tragedy, drives them to fail. How does an antagonist do that? Well, they challenge one of the core principles of the hero's character. Now let me drag this tangent all the way back to Iron Man 2, Nando, and Sean Chandler. See, I believe the world's sexiest screenwriter, Justin Theroux, absolutely nailed the 2 principles of Tony Stark, the Whiplash, and Justin Hammer are challenging. I'm going to call these the sins of the father and the dark path not taken. Let's do the sins of the father first. Have you ever tried to make a change in your life? One day you wake up and you go, I'm going to do this. What happened to you? Well, you still got all that baggage from your previous decisions, right? Or the baggage that was laid at your doorstep. It doesn't all just go away as soon as you decide to mentally make a change. Having said,
I am Iron Man.
Tony is still the figurehead of an international weapons manufacturer that was built by his father. This legacy of blood hangs heavy over him, and while he tries to justify it,
Millions we've saved by advancing medical technology or kept from starvation with our IntelliCrops.
after Tony goes through his crucible in the cave, he knows he's doing the wrong thing, and he makes the decision to
Effective immediately, I am shutting down the weapons manufacturing division of Stark International.
While Tony has the billions to make Iron Man armors, he also has to deal with the fact that he made all the money from selling weapons that killed a lot of innocent people. Iron Man 2 compounds this challenge by throwing in the idea that Tony's dad might have stolen the technology off Ivan Vanko's father. This is a great idea because Whiplash then becomes a physical manifestation of Tony Stark's weapon-dealing legacy. He becomes the consequence of having all that money. And then there's Justin Hammer, who represents the dark path not taken. And the trope of the antagonist in most superhero movies is called the Dark Mirror, where you fight an evil version of yourself. I'm talking about Batman, the man on the edge, the Joker, the man over the edge, Captain America, the man who respects power, versus the Red Skull, the man who wants to abuse it. Similar theories with Superman and Zod. All of them are dark mirrors of each other. Enter Justin Hammer. Hammer moves in to fill the weapons-dealing void left by Tony Stark. He is the dark path not taken. Tony has to literally fight his alternate future self. Come on, look at this breakdown. On paper, between Whiplash and Justin Hammer, that is solid. World's most beautiful screenwriter, Justin Theroux, and director of the greatest Christmas movie ever, Jon Favreau, crushed it conceptually. And no, I'm not being sarcastic. Elf is the greatest Christmas movie ever made. I even named my dog Jovi after Zooey Deschanel's character. So on paper, these two characters are exactly what Tony needs to face, his past and his future, in order to define his present. So why isn't Iron Man 2 awesome? And here's where I think I finally figured out the problem with Iron Man 2, and the problem with most superhero films in general. As wide as an ocean. Have you ever heard of the term, as wide as an ocean and as deep as a puddle? It basically means that something is massive, but not very complex or engaging. Remember all those subplots? Even if I boiled them down to just these 5, the way they're all resolved is underwhelming. When I nitpick stuff, my buddy Pete says I'm always getting the tweezers out, but I think this is more than just nitpicking. I think there are some serious problems here. One of the things I do when I'm writing is I go, well, if this happens, then this would happen. I'm not going to do any solutions here. I feel like Sean, Chandler, and Nando sort of have that sort of thing covered, and I save most of my stories and solutions for my comics. But as we start to pull at the threads here, I'll show you how I write and the questions that I ask myself. Let's look at these 5 subplots. Number 1. Blood poisoning from the arc reactor. I totally get that we can't sell pajamas and lunchboxes with a struggling alcoholic on them. So enter palladium poisoning. It is an excellent PG alternative. It is a great idea, and it riffs off the Ultimate's Tony, who is dying of a brain tumor. His death wish nihilistic behavior is exactly what we see in the Ultimate's comics. But in Iron Man 2, while I was told that his arc reactor was poisoning him, I was never actually shown it. Wouldn't it be great if there was actually some correlation between the more he used the armor and the more poisoning he got? Let's say he's out of the suit for a while, he's getting better, something bad happens, he suits up and he gets sick. A choice he makes that actively accelerates his poison levels. And the way they solved it with the hand waving of his dad having discovered the exact element that he needs to cure it, I know they tried to sell it with the line,
My greatest creation is you.
and my only reaction is, oh, come on! Why? In Pixar's 22 rules of writing, rule number 19 is coincidences to get characters into trouble are great. Coincidences to get them out of trouble are cheating. And while I absolutely understand the emotional connection that this creates between him and his dad, solving a problem by Deus Ex Patrica absolutely feels like cheating to me. Your mileage may vary. Let me know in the comments below. Number 2, the government wants the Iron Man armor. Let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, the government. Here's the thing, you can introduce science fiction elements and you get to play by your own rules. You want to do
wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Then you can sort of get away with that as long as you make the emotion real. But you introduce the government and I tell you, we all know how the government works. Well, okay, we don't actually know how the government works, but we sort of know how it should work. Maybe in principle, sometimes.
This is a tremendous idea.
Let's say Stark is covered under the Second Amendment to bear these iron arms. That's fine, but the government is not going to let a private citizen openly use cutting-edge military-grade technology on US and international soil. At the very least, they'd fine him for violating US airspace and have the FAA shut him down. They would find ways to tie him up in court and get a judge to enforce some sort of hold on Tony using the armor at all.
Thor's inspirational speeches are not admissible in court.
Again, this is interesting. It would limit the Iron Man armor and also force Tony to go rogue to save people. But in the movie, Tony convinces them that because no one else has the technology, they can't have it. But every other country will still want the armor. This is a massive security risk, just leaving next-gen military technology in a private residence. Even the comics in the 60s had Russia send a spy to get Stark's secrets, a little-known Russian agent called the Black Widow. And here's the thing, in Iron Man 2, the government actually won. They got the Stark tech. How? Well, Rhodey just walked in and stole it from Tony.
You let your friend fly away with your suit.
Better, I didn't give it to him. He took it.
So that means Tony actually built Rhodey a suit, though. Why?
According to Mr. Stark's database security guidelines, there are redundancies to prevent unauthorized usage.
Even so, it's one thing to give someone a gift. It's another thing for them to go into your house and just take it. But sure, let's get medals together. And the other thing that bugs me is, how does the War Machine armor work? I mean, isn't the arc reactor inside Tony's chest what powers the Iron Man suit? Knowing that the government wants his suit, why on earth would Tony build a suit that doesn't require the arc reactor that is in his chest? It's the best way to make sure that no one else can fly his suits of armor. And if that's a suit that doesn't require his internal arc reactor, what on earth is powering the suit? You can have all the wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey logic you want when it comes to powers and how they work, but you gotta stick to the rules that you set down. And given the government stole Stark's armor, why do we never see them replicate it? I get that this dude,
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave.
Couldn't replicate the arc reactor because he never had one to copy, but the government now has access to arc reactor technology and the whole suit, which means they could study it and they could learn about palladium poisoning. They could then control Stark by limiting palladium supplies or buying it all themselves. And if they have access to the suit, why wouldn't they reverse engineer it so by the time Ultron or Thanos lands, the US government can send an army of Iron Men to stop him?
You sit on a throne of lies.
Let's talk about Pepper and the romance storyline. So Tony's made this massive life decision to change, right? He's shuttered the weapon sales of Stark Industries. This would tank your stock.
Let's talk about this plan of yours. I think it's good, except it sucks.
So you can't just shut down your main profit-making venture and not pose as a solution or an alternative revenue source or business strategy. That'd be like McDonald's deciding not to make hamburgers anymore and not say what they're going to sell instead. Are all the Stark factories just sitting idle now? How is he paying his workers? This feels like a big deal to me.
My choices are my own.
And then you hire your personal assistant as the CEO? Look, this is not a gender thing. We all know Pepper can do the job, but on paper, it is a public relations disaster. The head of the company announces a radical new direction and won't even usher it in himself. Instead, he hires his PA to do the job. Come on now. Stark Industries is going to be on a penny stocks listing.
But rich people don't buy penny stocks.
There would be a vote of no confidence and some old white guy to have Pepper's job faster than you could say, fail upwards. But it's not like this choice wouldn't have had any interesting consequences. Apart from his genius, what is Tony Stark's power? Same as Batman's.
I'm rich.
What if after this decision, Tony couldn't afford to build the suits? What if he's running out of suits as they get damaged? Finite, dwindling resources creates drama and desperation.
I could have done better.
Let's talk about Nick Fury and the Avengers storyline. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of problems with the Fury plot because I don't necessarily think it's actually a full plot. As Sam Jackson openly admits, all he does is exposition. S.H.I.E.L.D. is just a catalyst for everything else.
I think I did okay.
Whiplash. People go on and on about Whiplash. They point fingers at everything, the bird, the tattoos, and I gotta say, I love all of it, and none of it has anything to do with why Whiplash doesn't work. See, there is a single scene that completely destroys the Whiplash character, and it's a scene that Mickey Rourke isn't even in. It's this one.
Anton Vanko saw it as a way to get rich. When your father found out, he had him deported.
Why does this scene break Whiplash? The interesting thing to this plot is that up until this point, Whiplash has a genuine reason to hate the Starks. Not these Starks, these Starks. He believes that Tony Stark's dad stole his father's research to fund his billion-dollar weapons empire. Meanwhile, he struggles in poverty. He wants what's due to him. And if this held true, if Tony's dad had actually stolen and built his empire on the back of Vanko's suffering and hard work, and then this is an opportunity for Tony to break the sins of the father. He ended his father's weapon dealing empire. He could have ended this too. He could have tried to make it truly right. If they wanted a tragedy, he could have failed, and if we wanted a classic Hollywood story, then somehow he would have found a solution with Funko together. My point is, if you want to go down these narrative roads, there's real opportunity for interesting, deep consequences. But to watch this entire subplot, the sins of the father, and Funko's vendetta by saying that Howard Stark never actually did any of this, it's disingenuous, and it robs every part of this movie of any dramatic impetus. Why? Because Tony never had to do anything other than find out that his dad was innocent. And then Funko just makes himself the bad guy for not caring. But really, why would Funko even believe any evidence told to him by someone he doesn't trust? It's a mediocre solution. Possibly maybe even less so.
Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
Justin Hammer's solution is heartbreakingly easy. If he was as smart and competent as Tony, he'd be a source of complex drama, a serious threat, and a real dark mirror, rather than just a punchline. Thank you again for sticking around. Before I get to my conclusion, it would be a huge boost to my arc reactor if you would hit that like button. Let's team up. I'll be your war machine if you hit that subscribe and notification bell. And if you want to check out my work, please grab Joker Harley Criminal Sanity Volume 1, either from your local comic book shop or from Amazon.com. Or you can check out Artemis from LindsaySterling.com and the merch store that's in your region, or from one of her concerts. I have a Patreon where I send out different goodies every month at each level. Maybe there's something there that you're interested in. Oh, and swing by jasonbadower.com to find me at a local comic book convention and come up and say hi.
Look, this has been a very enjoyable pantomime, but I'd like to go home now.
Let's talk about Scorsese's metric, a complex character. The main problem with most superhero films like Iron Man 2 is that the solutions to the problems are just not very complex. This is what makes them feel so simplistic and transitory, like they're for children, like a theme park ride. Oh, wait.
So, this all seems horrible.
Scorsese is just pleading for complexity. Cinema was about characters, the complexity of people and their contradictory and sometimes paradoxical natures, the way they can hurt one another and love one another and suddenly come face to face with themselves. The Joker has one goal in The Dark Knight, not to kill Batman, but to break the idea of him inside the man and also to the citizens of Gotham who believe in the Batman. So he forces Batman to choose between Dent and Rachel. It is a true hard choice, not like this one. And by switching Dent and Rachel, he forces Batman to genuinely fail, to push him closer to the edge, to force Bruce to come face to face with himself and realize that his principles mean nothing in the face of an opportunity for vengeance. It is a genuine, hard choice that not many of us could make the right decision from, that only someone of absolutely heroic convictions and emotional fortitude could make. It is complex and possibly meets Mr. Scorsese's definition of cinema. And what constantly plagues Marvel Studios is an almost pathological desire to stay away from any grays and complexities that might taint their characters. They are terrified that you might not like them. They're terrified that you might disagree with them. But as Stanley said,
we tried to make our characters have feet of clay.
I would say that across the board, the greatest moments of Marvel characters is when they fail. When Peter fails to save Gwen or Captain Stacy, when he gives up the costume, when Tony gives into the bottle. Every single time Bruce turns into the Incredible Hulk. These are the moments that complicate our heroes, and we saw that replicated several times in phases 1, 2, and 3 of the MCU. This is why I believe Civil War is great and so brave. First, Marvel Studios had the guts to turn their main character, Iron Man, into the antagonist. Second, the idea of splitting the heroes ideologically is great. It is complex. It is only brought down by the fact that Zemo's plot is hilariously nonsensical.
This is gonna end well.
But the final confrontation between Tony, Cap, and Bucky is dramatically and emotionally complex, and no one saw that ending coming. Satisfying, but brutal. To me, moments of cinema. While T'Challa's story arc in Black Panther isn't super complex, I think Killmonger is one of the greatest and most interesting antagonists in and out of superhero cinema. His entire story, motivation, and methods are complex and believable. And like another great antagonist, Magneto, his goal is correct, but it's his methods which are questionable. Killmonger is complex. He is a character worthy of the title of cinema. It's why the first Iron Man is great. While the resolution is simplistic, the events that change Tony are complex and believable. This is why Iron Man 1 is cinema. So how do we get superhero movies that are closer to Mr. Scorsese's definition of cinema? We need Marvel to go back to being brave, to lean towards complex characters with complex problems. Perhaps that's not enough for Mr. Scorsese to classify these as true cinema, but I guarantee you they will definitely make for better films. In fact, I'd almost argue that cinematic films for mature audience need to have complex, hard-to-understand problems with complex, hard-to-understand solutions. And the key to great all-ages cinema is that you need to have complex but understandable problems with complex but easy-to-understand solutions. To do this well is extraordinarily difficult. Look at all the movies that are released every year, year on year. So few of those movies are great mature all-ages cinema. And even fewer of those are great superhero cinema. While most of the rest just remain theme park rides. I actually got to meet up with my longtime channel sponsors, Linda and Rob of notesandclips.com. They are the nicest people, and I am so grateful for their support. Now, Linda gave me a bunch of her stationery boxes, and now I want to show you what's inside the navy tartan box. The box itself is beautiful. You are going to want to keep this. In fact, I think I'm going to keep all my drawing pens in here. Let's go in. Ooh, very nice. Very nice. Let me, oh, wow. The presentation is beautiful. Even Apple would be jealous of this one. Hope you can see that. I don't know if you can see this, but even inside, it's a gift just for you. This is solid. Now, let's go through what's in here. First up, you've got this card that you can customize. You can also add a personal message on the website, and it doubles as a postcard. Then you've got these super handy sticky notes. You can never have enough sticky notes. Trust me. My wife's monitor looks like Times Square, and she is very successful, so she would know. Then there's this really nice notepad. I can't stress enough how useful an actual physical notepad is. This one's 50 pages. Really nice. That'll keep you going. Then we have Linda's planner stickers. I have watched videos of unboxings, and all the experts agree the absolutely unequal quality of notesandclips.com's stickers. Here's a secret. Linda actually hand makes these and prints them out at home, and they are of the highest professional quality. It is unbelievable how good these stickers look, and they're incredibly useful. Next up, we have two unruled 120 GSM notebooks. Unruled is the best for high-level note-taking like mind maps, and this is really nice paper. I actually think I could probably watercolor paint. And believe me, I know paper. I am a paper snob. This pen is beautiful. I'm going to keep this on me. And when people want to borrow a pen, I'm going to whip this out and they're going to be like, whoa, this dude's money. Very nice pen. Then a happy birthday card and envelope. Why do you want a blank happy birthday card and envelope? So you don't have to shop for one at the last minute when you forget someone's birthday. This is like giving someone a solution to a future problem. What a stationery box. This is an incredible gift. And what do Linda and Robert, notesandclips.com, charge for this? $30. Come on now. And it gets even better. And if you use the code BADOWER25, you'll get the best current site-wide discount. Notesandclips.com is all the gifts you will ever need to give. Go to notesandclips.com or their Etsy store, etsy.com/uk/shop/notesandclips. Thank you, Notes and Clips, for being a sponsor on today's video. During my research for this video, I discovered this amazing video which poses the idea that Chef is Jon Favreau's response to the debacle of Iron Man 2 behind the scenes. Whether it's right or not, it doesn't matter. Chef is an incredible film, and you should absolutely go see it, and then you should watch this video. I'll leave a link below.